Good morning. Happy Father's Day to all the wonderful fathers that are watching and listening, and just to the heart of the Father. We honor you this day, and we're here to enjoy some music together and a wonderful message from Dr. Mary about mindfulness and your speaking. So lots to share today. So we're going to start off with Judy and Dalton. That was so moving. Thank you both. Let us dedicate that beautiful song to all the people that have lost their lives through COVID and through the current tension in the nation. Somebody's praying for you all. So I really appreciate the heart of both of you singing that. So here we are, one of our final services with this sanctuary closed. We're going to be opening on July 5th, and there are restrictions to that, so we want to make sure you pay attention to some of the regulations with social distancing and wearing the mask and the hand sanitizer, all of those little rules. They will be posted here, but we are excited to open the doors again and to have people fill the halls to a certain number. So right now, before we begin our service, I want to do a quick announcement. This Wednesday, I start a class on mysticism, and it is a certificated course. So information is online, or you can call Lori in the office if you want to register for that. And that'll be both done on Zoom, and I will be here in the social hall honoring space and providing that class as well. So there's 2 different opportunities to join us on that. Just I need to know ahead of time so you can get the Zoom invitation. And then Friday at 6:30 in the evening, I'm doing a variation to the Santosha healing service. And this will be just starting at 6:30, more of a contemplative service with some music, some prayer, some thoughts, some reflections on holding our hearts up through these times of grief and thinking of the people that have lost their lives in these past few months and putting our heart to prayer to lift us all up a little bit here. So that's going to be Friday, and I invite you to join me with that, and that'll be here in the sanctuary. And I think that's all the announcements. Is that right, Mary? Anything else that you can think of? So I'm going to share something that I came across from Eckhart Tolle before I do our reading from Damien. Think about this as we do our message today. When you make the present moment the focal point of your life instead of past and future, your ability to enjoy what you do, and with it the quality of your life, increases dramatically. So we bring ourselves to present moment, to Eckhart Tolle's wisdom. And with that, we will begin a song. What happens next? The reading, okay. I spaced out. The reading. Yeah, I'll play a song. Come on forward, Damien, and then we'll do a prayer and get this back on track.
Good morning. The reading today is from page 117 in The Science of Mind. Ernest Holmes writes, "We come back to the Word as the starting point of all creation. God's Word in the great creation, the great world, and our Word in the small world. One Spirit, one mind, and one substance. One law, but many ideas. One power, but many ways of using it. One God in whom we all live, and one law in which we all use. One, one, one. No greater unity could be conceived than that which is already given."
And this prayer to the One. This deep knowing that dwells in each of our hearts, that there is only one love, one truth, one presence, that is overseeing all that is. And we are a part of that, each one of us. And as we recognize today the wisdom of honoring mindfulness in our speech, we recognize how important it is through these days to deeply listen and to monitor our speech in such a way that it is a word of love that is spoken, not a word of opinion or division, but words of love. To recognize that through the power of speech, we find our connection, heart to heart, soul to soul, and our understandings deepen. So I give thanks for the wisdom that Dr. Mary puts together today to share this message with us and to allow us to just sit back and be mindful of what we hear and to put it into practice in our days. So I give thanks for all the ways this is unfolding right here, right now, present moment. And in deep gratitude, I release my word into the law, knowing it's already so. And together we share, and so it is. Dr. Mary.
Thank you, Sue. That was beautiful. And the music was beautiful. You know, sometimes my brother calls me and he goes, "Have you been praying for me lately?" And I go, "Of course." He said, "I could feel it." So I hope when he watches this on YouTube, he gets to hear your beautiful music. Well, the topic is mindful speech. And in researching this, I found an article in Tricycle magazine by Krishnan Venkatesh that caught my interest. And it begins with this: mastering our minds begins with mastering our mouths. He observed that we spend the first 10 years of our lives learning how to interact politely, respectfully. Then we spend another decade learning how to express more complex feelings, learning when to speak and when not to speak. But total mastery of our mouths is a skill that may take as long as a lifetime. In the Science of Mind philosophy, we learn how critically important our words are, and especially the feelings that go with our words. We see that the power of the word in thought or speech stimulates the creative process, and that reflects those energies right back to us in various ways. And so it's truly done to us as we believe. For Buddhists, right speech is one of the 5 precepts of ethical conduct, and it's also one of the components of the Noble Eightfold Path. According to the Buddha, impurity in our speech can come in 4 ways. The first one is telling falsehoods, deliberately relaxing our commitment to truth. Eventually, we may no longer remember what's true and what's not. The second is saying things that cause arguments and bad feelings, creating social disharmony in our words. We create mistrust, and it may drag other people down. The third way is using words that are designed to hurt and upset others, undermining their capacity for happiness. And the fourth way of sowing impurity in our speech is filling the silence with rambling talk that matters to no one, just to hear ourselves talk. So right speech is a mindfulness practice. And by being mindful, we have a greater awareness of our body, our mind, and emotions. Mindfulness makes it possible to recognize what we want to say before we actually say it. And that's really good, because when we can choose when to speak, what we say, and how we say it, it's a very gentle process. And it comes from the heart instead of our emotions. Over time, we also learn when to refrain our speech, when we feel anger or hostility, when to just shut up. Or then come from a place of love and kindness. You know, mindful speech is more important today for me than other times of my life, because so much of the week I'm in Zoom meetings with people, not just one-on-one. It could be 2-on-1, 10-on-1. I've been in meetings recently with 250 people. So mindful speaking is very important. At 7 a.m. every morning this past week, I've been on a Zoom call with over 250 people, and we're all participating in what is called the 21-Day Racial Equity Challenge. It's sponsored by the Center for Spiritual Awareness in West Sacramento. So Monday through Friday, 7 a.m., we all get in the Zoom, and it's so amazing because you have 250 people in just a few seconds. They've broken us down into groups of 4 or 6 with our own facilitator. So it's quite amazing. And then we talk for 20, 30 minutes. We talk about one of the 21 touchstones. They're really mindfulness things, how to be mindful on the Zoom talk. But then the facilitator will ask a question, and it's to help uncover our bias. It's to help uncover where we see racism through power, privilege, oppression, inequality. And then we decide to take, we promise to take one step that day to build positive social justice habits. Positive social justice habits. Now, I have my little chart here that I've been marking up every day, but you also go online, and there's a tracking tool, and you enter the same information there. So at the end, they're going to have an amazing spreadsheet, an amazing way of seeing what did people do to help with these positive social justice habits. So it's fun. Monday was day 1, and it was focused on how aware we are of what happens in our life. So they showed a short video. Many of you may have seen it. It's 2 basketball teams, one with white uniforms, one with black uniforms. And the instructor says, in the next 60 seconds, count how many times the people in white throw the ball. So you have a basketball team, and they're going back and forth, throw. And we're trying to keep up. Now, I've seen that video before, and I know that's not the question, but I can't remember what the question should have been. So after 60 seconds, the facilitator says, how many times did they throw the ball? And 5 times, 10 times, 30 times. It was amazing. It was all over the place. But I knew that wasn't the real question. So at the end of people telling how many times they saw the ball being tossed, she said, but did you see the person in the bear costume moonwalk through the basketball players? And I thought that was it, and I didn't see it. Yet, well, anyway, it's kind of a funny thing. So I Googled it because I wanted Paul to see it. So you can Google this too. Bear walks through basketball players. That's all you have to Google, and it comes right up. And it said that it was originally created to show people who drive cars how they don't see bicycles. Isn't that interesting? How they can miss seeing bicycles. So I thought, well, that was an interesting way of doing that. On day 2 of the challenge, which was Tuesday, most of us got very uncomfortable when the main facilitator shared a racist experience that she had, and she was angry and she was mad. And most of us started doing deep breathing. Okay, just listen, be present. No judgment, just be present. But on day 3, instead of 250 people on the call, there were fewer people. It made some that uncomfortable. So it's going to be interesting to see on day 21 how many are still left, but I plan to be one of them, no doubt about that. The most interesting thing about our talk on Friday was the holiday or celebration called Juneteenth. I don't know if you know about that. On June 19th, it's an annual day of celebration for African Americans. I heard about Juneteenth from corresponding with my friend Michael, who's African American. He told me about it, but I've never heard about it locally. Very interesting. It was on June 19th, 1865, 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation was signed. Federal troops arrived in Galveston, Texas, to take control of the state and free all the slaves, because Texas wasn't part of the states named in the Emancipation Proclamation. The troops were led by Union Army General Gordon Granger, who announced this. The people of Texas are informed that, in accordance with the proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of personal rights and property between the former masters and slaves. And the connection here too, existing before, now becomes that of employer and hired labor. So Juneteenth honors the final end to slavery in our country. Juneteenth is considered the longest celebrated African American holiday. And so it was interesting on our call Friday in the 21-day challenge how many people had not heard of this. One person was very moved to share his experience. He said he has a master's degree in American history, and he's taught American history for a long time. But it wasn't until he took a course in African American history that he heard of Juneteenth. He felt really sad about that. Last Friday, June 19th, the U.S. Justice Department Civil Rights Division issued a statement that included this. While Juneteenth is a joyous celebration of emancipation from enslavement, it also serves as a solemn reminder that words alone cannot deliver on the promises of freedom. Words alone cannot deliver on the promise of freedom, individual rights, and equal justice for all. Although our nation has come a long way, our work remains unfinished. Yesterday, I joined another Zoom call, and it was during the Shasta County Juneteenth celebration. First time I ever heard of us having one in Shasta County. So I signed up. It was an all-day celebration, but I didn't have all day to be on the Zoom with it. So I picked the segment called A Community Conversation. The celebration was put online by a group called the Shasta County Beloved Community, chaired by Eddie McAllister. And I've met Eddie before. He used to come to the interfaith meetings. So in the 4 sessions, I was in a community conversation. It was a panel discussion that included topics I had not heard about before. You can get online a spreadsheet of 400 years of inequality. 400 years. Now, it's a long spreadsheet. I thought I could print it out. There's no way. I mean, it's long. But it's awesome if you have time to read through it. Another thing I didn't know about is the doctrine of discovery. It has its roots in a papal decree, church decree by the Catholic Church, in 1452. It specifically sanctioned and promoted the conquest, colonization, and exploitation of non-Christian territories and peoples. There are still some laws on our books in our country that can be traced back to that doctrine. So this whole thing about equality, inequality, there's so much to think about. At the end of the panel discussion, one of the panelists said, so how do we take this momentum and put it into action? Good question. How do we show up for each other? How do we get more people to call it when they see racism? To call it. One of the panelists, I was tickled to say, we were all created by God. So how can we bring religions together instead of forcing religious beliefs that tear us apart? Good question. Let's stand in solidarity for all people united under the Constitution. I was glad to hear that too. So here's 4 things you can Google this afternoon when you're online. Juneteenth. It's June, Teenth. 400 years of inequity, the doctrine of discovery, and the Shasta County Blessed Community. That should keep you busy for a while. You know, I'm reading a lot of books, watching a lot of videos about this because I feel it's important in my white background to understand all this better. So I've been reading books like the Racial Healing Handbook and a very popular book, How to Be an Anti-Racist. It's interesting, I think I said last time I talked that I took the cover off the book at home so nobody would see the title of that book. And Paul got so mad at me when he heard about that. He said, "Why would I get mad about that?" I said, "You know, there's something in me that, how to be an anti-racist, whoa, that's my goal." In July, I'm signed up for a 5-week course that's being put on by Home Office using a book called Me and White Supremacy. Should be very interesting. So I think this whole movement to understand racism, systemic racism, has reached a critical point. And it's really shown me how insidious it is. It's just below the surface in so many areas. It's so well established in some areas of society. And now it's glaringly obvious with the tragic events that we've witnessed. In reading the Racial Healing Handbook, the author quotes Tima Okun on developing an anti-racist identity through the 6 R's. I thought it was very clever. R, read about the effects, impacts, and structures of racism. Reflect on new ways to challenge everyday racism. Remember how easily we forget racism exists. Risk challenging racism when we see it. And rejection is what we might experience when we do that. And relationship building is very important throughout our whole community. What I feel so good about through all of this is that in the Science of Mind philosophy, our number one principle is oneness. It's mentioned 105 times in the Science of Mind textbook. Oneness means there is one infinite intelligence, one source, one being which creates everything out of itself. And we give it many names. I call it universal intelligence. We could call it God, first cause, universal spirit. In the beginning of the text, Ernest Holmes calls it the thing itself, which helps a lot of people go, oh, okay, it's not the God on the chair in the sky. And knowing that we're whole and complete as humanity, I was thrilled when the Human Genome Project happened and found that in all humanity, we are 99.9% the same. In Science of Mind, we study other principles that make our life better, such as principle number 4, the creative process. That universal law which receives the direct impression of our thoughts and words and takes that energy and brings it back to us in various ways. It comes back into us as our experience. It's also called the law of cause and effect, because we know everything is energy when put under a microscope. The whole universe is energy. And so what we do with our energy goes out like a wave on the ocean. It impacts things, people, places in ways we don't always see. So that's why in Science of Mind, we're so focused on consciousness. What's in your consciousness today? It's being aware of our thinking. It's being aware of our biases. It's being aware of our judgment. And it's stopping those negative thoughts that can take us to dark places. Consciousness and conscious are mentioned over 275 times in the Science of Mind text. It's that important. And as we work to see the truth, principle number 6 is good. It's called goodness. All of creation is the manifest body of God. It's inherently good and always evolving towards greater goodness. We live in a life-affirming universe. And we recognize the sacredness in all things in principle number 8, We're spiritual beings living in a spiritual universe. And we recognize our individuality in principle number 9, which is freedom. We are free to choose and to create our own experience. So to close this message, I'd like to go back to where I started. Mastering our minds begins with mastering our mouths. In the science of mind, we learn that we create our life experience by mindfully paying attention to our words and our feelings. We see the power of our words in thought or in speech. It stimulates the creative process to bring that energy back to us. It's truly done to us as we believe. So I'm really grateful every day when I wake up knowing these truths. So join me in a prayer. There is only one. It's a favorite way to start prayers. There is only one infinite intelligence that has created all that there is. What we see, what we know, everything unseen. But we know the goodness in that creation is alive and well in us when we choose to see it. When we choose to use positive words, kind words, unselfish words, when we choose to see the good in all, life is just a serene experience. When we choose to judge, a lot of that going on in the world today, it creates inharmony in ourselves and the people that we share those judgments with. So today I know for myself and I know for you that as we watch our words in the days and weeks and months ahead, we choose goodness, kindness, happiness. We know all people are doing the best they can in every moment. And for that, we're grateful to know, no matter how it looks. So we send them our love. We send them our prayer that all people are awakened to the truth of this life experience. Thank you, Ernest Holmes. Thank you, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Thomas Troward, all those amazing people who brought this philosophy into being. As I live it the best I can every day, I feel its power. And I'm so grateful, knowing that as I set my intention for every day, it's how it works out. So I release these words to the universe, the goodness and kindness and love in the universe, knowing it's all available at our fingertips in every moment. And so it is. Lots of papers.
Thank you, Mary. What I value is just getting to witness Mary dive in to these times and apply herself, and then also share her heart and her wisdom and her awakening. So that's a message to us all. So we have a lot to take away from your time and your dedication to the teaching and to ministry itself, a true ministry in service to us. So thank you. So right now, just the idea of supporting the center is we have a moment to thank you again for allowing us to be able to continue on here. This is a valuable teaching of our time, and these times were made for this teaching. They were made for us. We are prepared and we are ready. So as you think about the monetary gifts, the gifts of service, the gifts of time, take a pause and just remember as we have the familiar blessing Gratefully I give with an attitude of abundance, for I know as I give, I do receive. And so it is. So in so many ways, as you have given, you have received, and we are grateful. So that concludes our service. Next Sunday, you'll have a special guest speaker, Reverend Lynn Fritz. We'll be ending the month talks on mindfulness, and we look forward to that. So check in during the week if there's any of the activities that you look forward to joining in. And right now, we will close our service with music. Thank you for being with us today. And truly, every father out there, go enjoy something fun to do. Bye.
Go ahead and stand on up.